Hello, listener. It's me, great director and lover of little girls, Luc Besson.
Joe, what are you doing?
I'm not Joe. I'm great director and probably a pedo, Luc Besson.
Okay.
I just want to tell the listener that if you've seen Gloria and you've seen my movie, Leon the Professional, you might see a lot of similarities, including a neighbor coming out of her apartment to complain and getting shot at. Imagine the same exact scene in both movies. What are the odds?
Are you saying this is a coincidence?
No, I'm saying I'm a fucking ack. I saw this movie and ripped it off. I am a fucking ack, but I love the little girls. Oh, ow, I wish the censors would allow me to have a 12-year-old Natalie Portman run around in her underwear with no top like the boy in this movie.
Dude, gross.
Gross? What is gross about my love for the little girls? The little the better. Oui, 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 I am French.
Is this borderline racist?
He was once chased off a border by the police because of my love for the little girls.
All right, that's enough.
Hey, Monsieur Michael Jackson! Welcome to this. No, sorry. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at always and asks, Does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaca. And today we're discussing Gloria.
Gloria.
But this movie actually didn't have that song in it anywhere.
Which is surprising. I'd never seen the movie before, but I thought for sure that song came from this movie.
Right? Anyway, it's from 1980, and we'll be talking about some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones that are dumb enough to both rip off the mob and go to the feds about it, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere.
And still remain in their home after doing both those things.
Right?
We'll discuss.
You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/DTSWpod. Now, Joe, take us back to 1980.
And that's the way it was.
1980, when Ronald Reagan was elected president and John Lennon was murdered. Wouldn't it have been a better world if those two things could have been switched around?
Somebody tried to do at least one of those.
Well, both of them were shot. Unfortunately, the wrong person died. Anyway, as this movie was set in New York, all our sources will be New York papers. Actually, it'll just be one New York paper, the Daily News. I guess since I mentioned it and the event happened 3 miles from where I currently live, let's take a brief look at John Lennon's murder, or rather, the result of it. George, read this headline from the Daily News.
Yoko phones Daily News. Begs fans stop the suicides. Wow. That headline is a testament to why celebrity just shouldn't be a thing.
I don't even remember this happening, but it did. I'll quote from the article. In a voice shaking with emotion, Yoko Ono today urged the grieving fans of her slain husband not to surrender to despair and specifically not to commit suicide, as 2 American fans already have done. As she spoke, her voice cracked often with emotion. It's hard, she said in a telephone call to the Daily News. I wish I could tell you how hard it is. I told Sean, Lennon's 5-year-old son, and he's crying. I'm afraid he'll be crying more. People are committing suicide, she told the news. They're sending me telegrams saying that this is the end of an era and everything. I'm really so concerned. But, she continued, but this is not the end of an era. Starting over still goes. End quote. All of you can read the full quote in the show notes where I provide a link to the article. I know you've dealt with suicide in the Navy, George, and I've known people who've killed themselves, but when folks kill themselves over people they don't even know, it's always very jarring to me. I'll never forget reading a story back when the original Battlestar Galactica was on TV. When the show was canceled, some kid, I think it was in California, killed himself. He killed himself because a TV show went off the air. Now, there's likely more to it than that, but that's how it was reported, and it bothered me so much I still remember it.
Yikes.
It's interesting, though, that both in this movie and in the last film we saw, Leon the Professional, the children suffer some serious trauma, but nobody is suicidal, which when I think about it, is a little weird. I'm not saying I wanted that theme in either film, but it's odd that the subject isn't even brought up. I mean, your family's wiped out and nobody says, I want to join them? Does that seem odd to you, George?
None of these films follow those children for more than a couple of months after the event. I think if you were to collect all of the Disney-fied children in cinematic universes and do a longitudinal study on them, they'd have a higher than baseline rate of suicide. That's a really dark way to look at cinema.
Then let's move on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crime in this movie. For those of us around New York of the 1980s, the city was a tough town. Although I think the AIDS virus killed a lot more New Yorkers during that time than crime ever did. But we like demonizing humans in this country more than diseases. And anyway, AIDS hadn't hit the news yet. What did hit the news was this. George, read this headline. Again, it's from the Daily News.
For three-time losers, justice really is blind. Now, I'm interested to hear this because justice being blind is supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to be a representation of the impartiality of the concept of justice. Let's see if that's what they mean by justice being blind here.
Okay, well, I will quote from the article. The state's tough three-time loser law, which authorizes long prison terms for violent career criminals, is being ignored by New York City prosecutors and judges, a Daily News investigation has disclosed. In fact, the latest statistics show that only 0.2% of all defendants convicted of felonies in the city during the first 9 months of last year were sentenced under the new persistent felony offender law, which prescribes long mandatory jail terms for habitual criminals, and even fewer were sentenced under the even stiffer persistent violent felony offender law. In the first 9 months of last year, 8,558 defendants were convicted and sentenced on felony charges in New York City, said one disgusted legislative expert who has been assigned to see how well the new law is working. And do you know how many of those 8,558 were sentenced as persistent felony offenders? Exactly 9 of them. End quote.
So, I'm actually surprised and okay, yeah, no, they kind of used justice being blind correctly there. Color me shocked.
Okay, and that is New York City in a nutshell in the 80s. Why aren't we putting more people in jail? Can't we jail more people? I know it says violent career criminals, however, that term was always really flexible. Even today, we pick and choose who is a violent career criminal and who isn't. For example, there's this guy who is an adjudicated rapist with 34 felony convictions who goes before audiences talking about how out of control crime is, and at least 47% of America, if not more, are going to vote for him to be president. Those voters are tough on crime except when it's a criminal they like. And let's not even get into how the courts are bending over backwards to give him every break possible. But back to 1980. Because crime was a problem, you had filmmakers continually showing New York being absolutely lawless. And you have news pieces like this implying that you can commit all the crimes you want with no consequences, which is laughable to anybody who's been processed through the criminal justice system. Also, I think a lot of citizens of our great nation prefer to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars locking up people that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars helping raise someone up. One is seen as tough while the other is seen as soft, which is weird since throwing a guy away is always easier than helping him better himself. Ask any social worker or teacher, that is not easy, and it's sure not soft. Any thoughts, George?
Nope, that is just a depressingly accurate read.
Okay. Well, we can't leave this history corner without at least one Mafia story.
Whew.
This one relates to another movie this podcast recently saw. George, read this headline yet again from the Daily News.
The porn biz is about to get dirty.
Yep, not only do we get a shout out for Leon, the professional, we also have one for The People versus Larry Flint. This story is brought to us by syndicated columnist Jack Anderson. Jack was considered one of the founders of modern day investigative journalism, and just to come, no pun intended, full circle, one of his investigations uncovered the Nixon administration's harassment and attempted deportation of John Lennon. But back to the porn, I will quote, "The death of organized crime's pornography czar, Michael Mickey Zaffarano, who dropped dead of a heart attack as FBI agents were closing in on him, will touch off a gangland war among mafia chiefs seeking control of the multi-billion-dollar porno industry, according to knowledgeable law enforcement sources. Zaffarano, 57, was the owner of the D.C. Playhouse in Washington and the Pussycat Theater in New York City. But this modest front concealed Zaffarano's real role as the mob's porn king for the entire country. Zaffarano was the Mafia's main man when it came to dealing out distribution ships to various mob families and mediating the frequent disputes among the territorial imperators. End quote. Okay, George, tell us about Gloria.
That's another song with that word in it. Sure. This was written and directed by John Cassavetes, and for the show, we saw him as an actor in Rosemary's Baby. Blurbs. IMDb says, when a young boy's family is killed by the mob, their tough neighbor Gloria becomes his reluctant guardian. In possession of a book that the gangsters want, the pair go on the run in New York. Okay,
sure.
Yeah. Amazon says, Rowlands garnered an Oscar nomination for her fierce portrayal as an ex-mob mistress who takes care of a young boy after his family is wiped out by the Mafia. Gloria must rely on her street savvy to prevent both herself and the boy from being the mobster's next target. IMDb has it. Amazon is trying to get creative, and it didn't pan out very well.
And also, does moving from place to place mean you're using your mob smarts? Street smarts?
Shooting at cars, holding mobsters up at gunpoint in a restaurant. We'll get to all of it. So, the film starts with some kind of unusual credits, explicitly naming casting directors and the artist who painted the backdrops for those credits. Those backdrops are glyphs of New York things and names of the cast.
That really was a weird, because the painting plays no factor in this whatsoever, so you have to wonder, why is that there?
Yeah. Then we get a lot of Manhattan establishing shots. It's a full 4 minutes before we meet the first person with lines. Jerry Dawn is riding a bus with her groceries. Badly. Like, she should know better than to stand up on one of those things before it comes to a halt with a cart full of groceries in 1980. She gets big mad about being bowled over when it breaks. She throws her own cart full of groceries off the bus only to have to pick them all up again. Then she heads into the apartment building she lives in with her husband, mother, and 2 children. Jerry Dawn is played by Julie Carmen.
And that whole scene is it seemed unnecessary, unless they just wanted to show an establishing shot of New York City. I don't understand why that was there. It just plays no factor in the movie whatsoever.
Nope, sure doesn't. In the lobby, she passes a strange man smoking a cigarette because, again, it's 1980. She is highly suspicious of him. When she gets to her floor, a crazy guy blocks the elevator doors, pushing random buttons until she pushes past him. I think this entire opening sequence is to make you afraid of New York.
And that was another thing. Why is that guy there? He's not one of the mobsters, so why is he doing that? Why is that there?
Yeah, it's not a shady apartment building either. Like, the apartments are fucking nice in there.
Pretty big.
It's just the hallways seem to be a no man's land. Once home, she learns that her grocery adventure was for nothing because they need to leave like yesterday. Her husband, Jack, is a bookie for the mob. He has committed the twin unpardonable sins of skimming off the top and ratting to the feds. He has a record book of all the mob's shady dealings, and the mob is coming to get it with extreme prejudice.
Which, of course, as I mentioned in the cold open, because I brought up Luc Besson, is a complete, well, I can't say complete ripple, because they came first. So Leon the Professor is a complete copy of this opening. Is the opening. There's a mob's going to come get me, and rather than move out, let me just stay in the apartment. I know these people come get me. I know what I did, but let's stick around. And let me just tell my wife at this moment, while she was out shopping for some reason, then she comes. When she comes back with the groceries, I'll tell her. And what was that conversation before she went out for the groceries?
You know what we can say? This is not, Leon was not a copy of this. You know why? Grocery shopping doesn't save anybody's life in this movie.
No, that's true. That is true. The girls get saved in that one. That's true. But it's still wild. Like, okay, what did they say before she left? Okay, honey, I'm going to go shopping, do some grocery shopping. And then he not think, maybe I should warn her that this is how it happened. We should leave. Instead, he lets her leave the house, go shopping, and then come back and they go, we got to get out of here?
I guess. Let's move on, Joe.
Okay, well, Jack Dawn is played by Buck Henry, who we saw for the show in The Graduate. And I've seen in What's Up, Doc?, Grumpy Old Men, The Owl and the Pussycat, To Die For, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, The Player, Shortcuts, Defending Your Life, and Catch-22.
And I've seen him in Serendipity. Jerry is less than thrilled with this, but what needs to be done, so she moms as hard as she can at her children, Phil and Joan, to get them to get their things so they can bail. Phil Dawn is played by John Adams. This is his only credit. And Joan Dawn is played by Jessica Castillo. I don't think this is her only credit, but we haven't seen her in anything.
Mm-hmm.
When she mentions the guy in the lobby, the plan changes from escape to standoff.
Which is another strange thing. Like, why can't we just, okay, guys, just go down the fire escape and I'll hold these guys off.
Right?
Oh, and also, why would they even want to kill the whole family? They just want him.
To make a statement. The guy near the end of the movie explains that as that.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Jack arms himself and his wife with fucking 6 shooters. They get ready to shoot anyone who comes through the front door. In the lobby, we see that, well, he's correct about their situation as a handful of goons start making their way up, the smoking guy from earlier included. The first person to the door, though, isn't a goon. It's their friend and neighbor, Gloria Swenson, just stopping by to say hi.
I think she just might actually borrow something.
Yeah, maybe a cup of sugar or some shit.
But anyway, Gloria Swenson is played by Gina Rowlands.
The parents get an idea. Send the kids off with Gloria so they won't get killed. She grudgingly accepts this proposition. The kids are less amiable. In fact, Joan barricades herself in her room to a degree that Jack gives up on trying to save her. He just sends Phil with Gloria. He also entrusts this 6-year-old with the numbers book and tells him he's now the man of the family. Phil doesn't want to go and fights every step of the way until they get to Gloria's apartment.
And before we get into Gloria's apartment, how come it never occurs to anybody, okay, fine, the kids don't want to go, Mom, why don't you take the kids over to Gloria's apartment? They probably would go with you, and I'll stay here, since the mom is mostly what's me anyway.
Good point, Joe.
This is like, no one is thinking in the entire first few minutes of this film. This man does nothing that's realistic. Like, I want to save my family, so let me tell them about this hit.
Well, on the bright side, though, he does pay for that stupidity.
Well, with his mother-in-law, his wife, and his daughter. All pay for his stupidity.
Yep. So, in Gloria's apartment, he meets her cat and then repeats over and over again that he wants his father. He mixes in some insults.
I want my father! Poppy! I hate you stupid person. You're a pig.
Adorable.
And kind of confusing to me because, all right, so that's his mother's friend. So he must have seen this one before. Did they always hate her? Did they never have any sort of conversation before when he came out of the house? He's always mean to her?
We can't think about the history of these characters, Joe. We will never get this episode done. So Gloria lets him call home, and he talks to his dad for a minute. He wants to keep talking, but he can't because, gunfire erupts before an explosion qualifies him for a protagonist role in a Disney flick. Gloria realizes that they can't stay there, so she packs some clothes and a revolver. They leave, but they get photographed by a reporter on their way out. She takes him to a friend's apartment, for which she has a key. They crash for the night, and when she goes to take a shower, Phil runs down the street until he catches a glimpse of himself on the front page of a newspaper.
And then he promptly takes that newspaper.
Yeah, nobody around that newspaper looks and goes, That's that kid. That's that kid.
Yeah,
That kid right here. Hey, Mom, please, somebody. That kid is right the fuck here.
Oh my God. They go through this whole film. We'll get to it, I'm sure, later, about she's also seen on TV. Her name is used. His picture is on the front page. And no one recognizes them as they go through this entire film, running from place to place.
Nope. I mean, in that kind of world, why did we even bother putting faces on milk cartons?
Well, that came later.
Yeah. Gloria sees his face, too, on the news, where she is named as his abductor. They get into another tiff about who's the man here, but have to pull it together when a bunch of mob goons who know Gloria come looking for them.
What do you mean? She seems to know all the mob goons. Everyone who comes after her, she knows.
Well, I mean, she is the head mob guy's ex-girlfriend.
I guess, but what are the odds that she would know every single dude who comes?
Well, apparently 100%, Joe. The odds are 100 out of 100.
Yeah. Gloria got around.
They run into a car full of those goons outside and exchange word before Gloria empties her revolver into it, causing it to speed off and flip over and adding an unwanted complication to her life. See, and if this was Leon the Professional, the next night, as the kid was sleeping, she would go up to him with the revolver and put it to his head before deciding that she can't do that.
What I love about that scene is that a car flips over in the middle of the street, and she still manages to get a cab. The street's all empty, and then this cab comes along. And the cab driver's going like, "Oh, I got to report the center or something." She said, "No, we got to get out of here." Just go.
In fact, like 3 cabs ignore her. But after she causes an emergency in the middle of the street, a cab think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah, just amazing.
So a lot, and I mean a lot of this movie is watching Gloria and Phil go from one place to another. So we get some of that. Then Gloria realizes that it's not safe for them in New York, but she needs a good night's sleep to come up with a plan. So she goes to her bank and gets all the cash from her safe deposit box. Then there's no room for them at a posh hotel, so she goes one step down to a flop house. And then we get this movie's Leon the Professional scene.
May I touch yours?
May you touch my what?
Here. You like me?
How could I resist you? Body like yours. Pleasure to lie in bed with you.
Do you love me?
No, I don't even know you.
That was truly bizarre.
Now, I say it's a Leon scene, but there are a few differences that may or may not really matter. 1, Gloria playing into it almost diffuses it more than Leon shooting milk from his nose. 2, Matilda was 12. Phil is half of that, making the premise seemingly more absurd. And 3, while Phil and Matilda both lost their families to gun violence, Phil isn't seeking revenge. And Phil actually liked his family. He's got a 6-year-old conceptual framework of human relationships, and instead of pigeonholing Gloria into the role of lover, he evaluates her to fit into every role that he knows of. Mother, sister, girlfriend, and friend.
Also, the important distinction, besides him just being younger, is that even though we see far too much of his body, it didn't feel like it was eroticized.
No.
I didn't feel like, when they're in bed together, I certainly didn't think, I didn't feel there's any sort of weird sexual thing going on here, unlike in Leon the Professional.
That the actor had to work to diffuse for the audience. And this, it comes across more like it's a little kid trying on bigger kid ideas.
Right.
And I don't know, the age thing, I'm gonna land on the age thing as what makes that okay, because I don't want to interrogate right now in this moment whether or not I think it's more appropriate for a boy to do that than a girl to do that.
But it's just, maybe it's because he is so young, it just seems so much more innocent.
Yeah, I think it's the age thing. Please, listeners, don't write in with the next mob orphan movie that we have to watch to disprove what I just said.
Well, in all fairness, we picked both those films. I can't blame the audience. I picked this one and you picked...
Yeah, but I don't know of another one. I'm saying don't make me aware of another one. Don't put that in my crosshairs.
Yeah, who knew this was a genre?
Right? In the morning, Gloria declares that their next step is to go to Pittsburgh. Because anything good ever comes out of Pittsburgh.
Because we know there's no mob in Pennsylvania.
Right. First, she takes him to a graveyard so that he can say goodbye to his parents by saying it at a grave marker. Any grave marker. Doesn't have to be theirs.
I don't think I should do this. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind a lot of things. But this is a little gruesome.
There is no fucking way this child knows the word gruesome!
I don't know. His parents may have said gruesome around him.
No, I don't buy it from this kid, because we'll hear other things that this kid says.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you get into it, and I meant to bring this up earlier. They keep saying the kid's Puerto Rican, and he looks like he's ethnic of some kind, but he certainly doesn't look like Buck Henry's kid, and yet he's supposed to be Buck Henry's child. So I'm like, okay, how did
Yeah, but
that...
the mother, he's also his mother's child.
That's true, but only the mother's genes are in them, I guess.
I mean, if one of the parents are, you don't have to question it. It's
okay.
That's what happened.
Alrighty.
I definitely think he's more his mother's kid than his father's kid anyway. She had some spitfire to her. Almost getting in a fist fight with her husband in the kitchen. Justifiably, he should have gotten socked right in the kisser.
Oh, he's insane. Worst parenting ever.
So he does that saying goodbye thing. And then they go to a diner in New York Penn Station to get some grub. Who should sit at a nearby table but all of the mob goons that are after them?
What a coincidence!
What a coinky-dink. So Gloria pulls her gun and makes them all empty their ammo into her purse. Not by, firing their weapons, by, emptying the chamber out.
And again, this is out in the open. There are other customers in that restaurant, not just the mobsters. No one seems freaked out about this. No one goes like, ah! No one stands up. Nothing. Everything's cool as ice.
And in no point in the history of Penn Station has there been a moment where there were not at least 10 cops walking around it.
Well, this is 1980, so maybe not.
No point in the history of Penn Station.
It's true. There's no cops at all in that building. We don't see one officer walking by.
So she dashes with Phil through the kitchens into a bar out into the street where the goons are looking, only slightly less armed.
And that was another thing. They seem to know their way. Phil seemed to know.
Phil has an intuitive understanding of restaurant layouts. Yeah.
That was really weird. Have the two of them been there before? How do they know which way to go? He said, no, it's this way, it's this way. And she turns the other way. But either way, they know obviously how to get. I wouldn't know that. I don't know how they did.
So they stop off at another apartment before wandering again. Gloria realizes she should put Phil in boarding school.
Anyway, you're not Spanish like me. You're not my mother, you're not my father, you're not anyone to me. You're not enough for me. Okay? Okay, Gloria? So I'm going to find a family, some new friends, and a girlfriend, too.
Okay.
You're a nice girl, Gloria, but you're not for me.
I mean, that was adorable. I don't care. That was the cutest fucking thing you could have in a mob movie.
I wonder how much of that was written and how much was his just improv.
I mean, if that was improv, there's no way this kid would have only one acting credit. He was coached very specifically every time right before he opened his mouth. It had to be.
I'll tell you one thing, this kid can't act. I'm sorry, I can understand why he only has one act credit. But it doesn't mean he couldn't improv.
He opts to run away while she goes and has a single sip of a cold beer at a bar. Then she gets in a cab and pays to be driven all over Manhattan, slowly, looking for a particular 6-year-old.
And this movie makes New York City seem so small, because everywhere she goes there's the mobsters, and she easily finds this little boy trying to run in her cab.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no way that Phil would have gone inside of a building. He had to have stopped on a stoop somewhere.
Of course. Or just walking, sure.
They eventually find him, sitting with some other kids on a stoop. He makes a run for it with one of them, and they get snatched into a building by goons. They're taken to an apartment full of kids and women, and get uncharacteristically gently interrogated about the book. Gloria storms in, shoots the other kid's dad, disarms everyone, and makes off with Phil, who during the whole thing is bad-mouthing her.
These are either the most incompetent gangsters, or she is the toughest broad in the world, or maybe both.
Why not both, Jeff?
Why not both? Because at no point did they ever shoot back at her, right?
Nope.
And
I'm trying to think. I don't think a single shot is fired in her direction.
No. But she is just shooting up the place.
No. There is a moment where people are shooting.
Oh, yeah. Near the end, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When they finally decide to return fire. Most of the film, she's just shooting them and they're not doing goddamn thing. They're just busy dying or running or whatever.
So they try to use the subway, but, the local is always too slow. So they try to switch to an express, but those fucking assholes who won't let people off the goddamn train before they start pushing in get Phil stuck inside with Gloria on the platform. This becomes a game of trying to get off of different trains at the same station to reunite, which is complicated when Gloria encounters more goons on the subway.
Indeed, they're all over the place. But I just want to quickly say, that is probably the most accurate thing in this film.
Yeah,
that
those
is exactly what I used to do as a kid.
Yeah, that happened to me at... I'm talking about the assholes that, as soon as the door opens, they are trying to rush into the train before anybody can get off of the train. That fucking happened to me in Atlanta at the goddamn airport tram. And I'm like, you fuckers need to stop watching movies about New York.
Okay, that's a good point. Yes, also push you under the train. That's also true. But I was just thinking of, that's how we used to do it back in the day. If you missed your stop with someone else, or for some reason you couldn't get off, you met them at the next station.
Next station, yeah. Because, it makes fucking sense. He can't even hear her through the door, but he figures it out.
Yes.
And we know he can't hear her. He's like, what? I can't hear you. What?
What are you saying?
Now, It's entirely possible that another strap hanger was like, this is what she said.
Yeah.
Speaking of strap hangers, She fights those goons off with the help of some of them and then reunites with Phil at 42nd Street. From there, they walk to 33rd Street. We don't see that, but it's the only way that they could get to the PATH trains from there because they end up in Jersey at Newark Penn Station. That's 2 Penn stations in one movie. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of insane how I can recognize both of those places as, like, this. I didn't start hanging around in New York City and Newark until this part of my life. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't look that much different from 1980.
No, it doesn't.
Even though Penn Station has gone through a complete remodel. Mm-hmm. The New York one, that is.
Yes.
So they get another hotel and a good night's sleep. She goes to get them donuts and ends up getting them for free because the guy can't break $100 bill. Fucking money begets money, am I right? A goon stops her at the door and gets into a cab with her. Gloria makes a scene, and then the goon does a racism, and the very tall cab driver evicts the goon, mercifully letting him keep his teeth.
First of all, again, everywhere she walks is a goon that she knows, another guy that she actually knows. Who's also a mobster. Yeah, and then he gets into the car. Doesn't pull out a gun himself for some reason. Gets into the car. Then for some reason we get this racist scene of saying, what do you call the cab driver, a monkey or something?
Yeah, he says, you look like you're an ape. You look like an ape.
Yeah, he said, well, get the fuck out of my cab, which of course. Now, this is 1980, although even today I think that cab driver probably would have had a piece. So I don't know if it would have ended so peacefully. That man would have had a gun, and I assure you, he would have done more than just to get out of his cab.
Well, Gloria uses that racial tension as a distraction and vanishes, leaving the donuts in the cab.
Yeah, she should have taken the donuts.
Yeah, but I mean, free donuts for the cabbie. When she gets back, she tells Phil that she's going to call Tony Tanzini, the mob boss, who happens to be her ex, to make a deal by giving him the book. Tony Tanzini is played by Basilio Francina, and we haven't seen him in shit. Phil has some legitimate questions about this plan that Gloria just doesn't fucking address. Except she does load Phil with cash, and then...
If I'm not back in 3.5 hours, that doesn't mean I'm dead. It means I'm going to meet you in the train station in Pittsburgh. You understand?
I love you, Gloria. I love you to death.
Aww.
Where does that come from? This kid goes through so many emotions.
This kid does go through so many emotions, and that's actually kind of something I could buy in this movie, is this 6-year-old who just lost his family going through a lot of really complicated emotions.
Okay, fair enough.
So off she goes. Phil goes to an analog clock on the wall and counts out 3.5 hours on it. Fucking good thinking, kid. She goes to see Tony, who keeps her waiting just as a matter of course. When he does see her, he is insistent that she deliver Phil to him in addition to the book. Because, and that's where he's like, we murdered that family to set an example. We have to murder the whole family. We need you to bring us the kid so we can murder him.
I totally missed that, but that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Gloria can't change their minds, so she opts to up and walk out of there. They have no intention of letting her, so she shoots her way out. Why do they continually underestimate her willingness to shoot them right after complaining about her shooting them?
It's true. They're shocked. She pulls on a piece. What did they expect to happen? Why was she not searched before she even sat down?
Right?
See if she got a gun on her. They're like, it's just Gloria.
Yeah, and that's where they shoot back. She shoots the goon in the hallway and gets in the elevator, and they punch out the elevator window and fire downwards at it.
That's the only time they return fire. It's true. Yep. Yeah, at that point.
In the hotel room, the phone rings. It's the front desk. Phil tells them they're staying for 2 more days. Then he bolts because it's been at least 3.5 hours, I guess. He makes his way to Pittsburgh, to the train station where she said to meet him, but then leaves the train station and goes to a cemetery.
Which cemetery?
Good question, Joe.
I mean, I assume Pittsburgh has more than one cemetery.
Right?
Okay.
He finds a grave and, assuming Gloria is dead, says another goodbye prayer. Who should show up in a cab but Gloria in a grandma disguise? He slow motion runs to embrace her and takes off her hat and wig for some reason. The end.
Well, he takes it off so the audience can recognize, that is Gloria, right?
Because we wouldn't get it from her voice.
They couldn't get it, just in case they couldn't get it from her voice. There's a visual. There's no doubt about it. It's Gloria.
I'll give this movie this over Leon. No plants were harmed at the end of this movie.
I really need to know. All right, I know she stole. Not sorry, it was her own money. I guess maybe she had a lot of money stored away. Okay, fine. What is? I mean, she had so much money she could get a. Because that was a limousine she came in, wasn't it? Wasn't it a driver let her out?
I don't know, Joe.
And then she's got on a wig and so she got a whole.
She pulled a lot of money out of her safe deposit box. I don't think access to money was this woman's problem.
Did she have this all planned? I mean, how did she manage? I don't know. It just seemed weird. And suddenly she has this whole new identity, and this is now going to be his grandma. All right, sure, why not? All right, George, does this still work?
It works better than Leon.
That's a low bar, buddy.
But, like, this was mostly watching them transit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there was enough of a story. Like, the acting was stilted, especially with the kid.
The kid was terrible.
This wasn't a very good movie.
No, I don't.
Same point you made about Leon, right? We don't mind watching a movie that's basically a cartoon. But this movie just went bananas.
Well, it's weird because as dumb as Leon was, it has some very exciting bits to it because the bad guy is just so over the top. Mm-hmm. And we really don't get any of the bad guys here. They're just there to get shot, basically. So we just get Gloria and this kid. The kid's not that interesting. And I don't know how Gina Rolo's got an Academy Award nomination. The other actresses that year must have been terrible.
They must have.
Not that she's a terrible actress, but...
This wasn't a good movie for a great actress to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about her character. She's just this lady who carries this kid around with her.
She used to fuck mobsters.
And she knows a lot of mobsters. Mm-hmm. It's not a good film at all. And John Cassavetes is supposed to be one of these great directors, and I haven't seen much of his work, and clearly you haven't either. And I hope the other stuff he's done is better than this. I hate to think this is representative of his great directing, because this is not a good picture. I'm sorry. It is not.
I hope so, too.
So it does not work. I can't believe it ever worked.
Yeah.
How did this thing get an Academy Award nomination of any sort? I have no idea. All right, George, what's up next?
Next week is our Halloween episode. For us, that means holidays by Price is Right rules, meaning closest release date before the holiday. It drops on October 29th for patrons, October 30th for everybody else, and we will be talking about Beetlejuice from 1988.
Oh, I hear that's back in the news.
It is, because there's a sequel.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Good, great timing for the both of us then.
Yeah. And we put this on the list, like, before I knew there was a fucking sequel.
We put everything on the list before we know anything.
Yeah.
People, you have no idea how far ahead we do this stuff.
I mean, I can actually just say that. Solidly, we have our list out through the beginning of 2026.
And you wouldn't believe how far ahead I put the patrons' choices up. So far ahead that I forget the films I've listed. Mm-hmm. George could totally change them. I wouldn't notice. Like, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, that would just be me doing work, though.
Just extra work. Unnecessary extra work.
Like, you've already done that work. Why would I redo it?
Yeah, no reason at all. All right, so I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed. Because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
You want to run away? That's your problem.
Bye, Chiquita. Bye, little sucker. Bye, little insect. Bye, little fly. Bye, little tiny insect. Bye, sucker.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Because as we know, there's no mob in Philadelphia. Pittsburgh's in Philadelphia, right?
You mean Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, sorry.
Dear Abby, I'm a former ugly duckling. Dear Dr. Brothers, my daughter isn't happy with her husband, and yet she won't get a divorce because of her 2 sons. Dear Miss Manners, we recently moved, partly for privacy, and now I find that my next door neighbor walks right into my house anytime she pleases,